Hello there, welcome to Turk Talks. Did you know that the movie The Road to El Dorado is actually accurate about something? I mean, mostly accurate. It's mostly accurate about this particular subject. That's right, we are talking about the Mesoamerican Ballgame as featured in the movie The Road to El Dorado. On to the intro. For those of you who aren't aware, which is a very few of you, I would hope and assume. Anyway, The Road to El Dorado is a DreamWorks animated film that came out in the year 2000. It starred Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh as the leads, Miguel and Tulio. It's a really fun little adventure. It's kind of based off of the Bob Hope comedy tour that he used to do with another guy that was the road to whatever town they were visiting. So that's what's kind of a play on. And you can find that in the movie itself. There's a scene where their reflections kind of take on the shapes of Bob Hope and the other guy. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I apologize. Put it on the screen. Somewhere. Subscribe if you want to hear me talk about other things besides this. We've got a lot of stuff coming up for you guys, so let me know what you think. So, The Road to El Dorado is actually a really good and underrated film that most people my age grew up on. There's lots of comedy. It's really cool because Kenneth Branagh and Kevin Kline were both in the same recording booth when they were actually recording their dialogue, which makes it really funny and interactive, and it's just kind of something that you don't see in a lot of animated films. The story is basically these guys happen upon the map to El Dorado, which is the fabled city of gold that's in South America, and the movie vaguely places it in like Mexico, maybe, but also it should be in South America, or at least Central America. Yeah, it's kind of vague on that. And then of course there's Cortez. Cortez is involved, as well as his horse, which I forget the horse's name. Altivo. The horse's name is Altivo. Thank you, Miss Producer. Altivo. There is like this interesting witch doctor dude who's very, very into human sacrifice because the indigenous peoples of South and Central America were really into human sacrifice. Look it up. The witch doctor is in contrast to the chief, and there's also a girl named Chell involved. She's a very funny, seductive, and manipulative person who wants to get out of the situation that she's in, and she kind of like attaches herself to Tulio, which is funny. There's a very adult joke in one of those scenes. If you know the movie, you know the scene I'm talking about, right? No? Just me? Okay. Anyway, so the part that I want to talk about that is actually somewhat historically accurate is the ball game that they play in that movie with the big rubber ball that then they switch out for an armadillo and then they end up winning the game and all that stuff, and it's played in that court and there's like the hoop and it's like maybe ancient basketball hoop, although there's only really one version of the game that actually included the hoop. It's the hip part, but we'll get to that. Trust me, we'll figure it out. So that game is mostly accurate. It's especially accurate in the part where Tulio tries to bump it with his hip and he hurts him. Tulio! A hip! The ball that they used in the version of the game where you use your hips to hit the ball was 9 pounds of solid rubber. There's a reason why our modern sports balls have air in them and they're not solid, because getting hit in the face with solid rubber really hurts. So, not a good thing. Anyway, one of the inaccuracies of the movie is actually the inclusion of Cortez. Cortez was not involved in the search for El Dorado. It was actually Gonzalo Pizarro who was the conquistador that was searching for El Dorado. Just wanted to get that out of the way because the movie may be fun, but it has a lot of glaring inaccuracies. The Mesoamerican Ballgame, that is actually historical, has been around since probably 2000 BC, which, for those of you keeping score, is 4,000 years ago. there have been multiple courts that have been unearthed. So the smallest court that was found was 16 meters long by 5 meters wide, and the largest court that was found was almost 100 meters long by 30 meters wide. For my American audiences, the big one is about the size of an American football field, and the small one is about the size of like your average playground. So not that big. Maybe like a handball court, dodgeball court. You guys get the idea. So there's been a bunch of different courts that have been unearthed and studied by various archaeologists. And what they have discovered is actually a lot of the round rubber balls that are made from, again, solid rubber, because in Central and South America, there are a lot of rubber trees in existence, and they have been there for thousands of years. And people figured out during that time that if you kind of like melted the strands coming off of these trees, that you could shape them into like a round ball shape, like a sphere shape. And they used them for a lot of other stuff as well. They figured out that you could use them for insulation and padding. Speaking of padding, they actually had a lot of different types of armor to protect them from the different game types. They had shin plates, they had forearm plates, they had hip plates. All of these were made of, well, we can assume they were made out of wood because we don't entirely know, because wood kind of rots away. What they have found is actually these little clay figures and also stone depictions of the players playing the game. So they found these pieces of armor represented on the players, and we know that they were trying to protect themselves because, again, it's a 9-pound ball of solid rubber coming at you at speed. I don't know how else to tell you this, people. That would definitely break bones. It would absolutely cause concussions. And according to early Spaniard records, people died playing the game. So yeah, which I'm happy to tell you, the game still survives in certain parts of Mexico, such as Sinaloa, where a lot of native populations still do exist. The game has I'm totally gonna butcher it. I'm sorry to those of you who actually speak this language. Oyamalitzili. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We will put it on the screen. You tell me down in the comments if I'm absolutely wrong about my pronunciation, which is fine because I don't speak this language. It is kind of like Spanish, but also not like Spanish.
Alamolispe.
That's apparently how you pronounce it, folks. I don't know if that's accurate at all in the original language or otherwise. There you go. They have shortened it, thankfully, to Ulama is the modern pronunciation of the game. And if you're wondering what that means, it just means ball game. Yeah, it's just that simple, ball game. So there are 3 different versions of the game that we know of and that have translated to the modern day. You have Ulama de Cadera, which is like the hip version that they show in the movie, where you use your hip to hit the large ball, and that has about 5 to 12 players on each team, and that one was really brutal. The people who play it in Sinaloa to this day, they just are perpetually bruised because they, again, play with a 9-pound solid rubber ball, and it causes a lot of injuries. But they still play it because keeping the tradition going, baby. Other version that we know of is Ulama de Antebrazo, which is the forearm version, where you play it on a smaller field, which is probably that 16 by 5 meter field version, and you use your forearm to kind of hit it. You had these like pad things, like a gauntlet thing, and then you'd hit the ball. Those were about 5-pound balls that they used there, and it's 1 to 3 players on each team. Then you have the third version that we know of, which is Ulama de Maso, which is played with a wooden paddle, kind of like cricket or baseball even, where they use the smallest balls that we found, which are like 1 to 3 pounds, and it's played with teams of 3 to 4 players. So those are the 3 versions that we know of, that we have depictions of, and also that the native peoples of Sinaloa actually still do play to this day, which is just really interesting to me that they are playing the oldest ball game in the world. Again, it's 4,000 years old. They started playing in 2000 BC, and some people are still playing it today. That just blows my mind. It's incredible. Humanity is incredible. I love it. In the movie, they depict only the hip game, and then it involved a hoop. Apparently, the hip game was actually more like volleyball.
Box straight to the man! The myth! The legend!
This kind of like hit it back and forth to each other, and as soon as it went out of bounds or was on the ground, it was out of play, then the other team would get the point. The hoop thing was more than likely played with the smaller balls. We don't entirely know for sure, but we do know that hoops existed, but I'm not entirely sure that the game in the movie is depicted as accurately as it could have been. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you actually do a little bit of research, but it was probably a different size ball and a different variant of the game. It might not have been the hip game, is what I'm saying. But it still is really cool to see that kind of game represented in a movie, especially a game as ancient as this one. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm interested to explore this topic more, and I'm also interested to talk about The Road to El Dorado. Again, that's a great movie. Just watched it the other day. That's why I'm making this video. So don't forget to please like and subscribe to this channel and this video. We really appreciate it. And as always, my friends, you got the makings of greatness in you.